If you with it, drop it.
Hi guys, this is your girl Mandata. Welcome to another episode of the Mandata Show. I'm very excited. I feel like I'm always excited about this show because we're talking about things that I love. I mentioned this before. The show is about 3 important things for me. Number 1 is conversations. It's about what I think, how I do this thing called life, but also excitement over how my community does its own things. Number 2, it's about style. What are we wearing? What does the face look like? What's the hair looking like? You know, the vibes. And then number 3, obviously, like I said, it's about building community. So very excited to see what my existing community is all about, but also the new community that I'm forming. So if you're new to this, please subscribe, please follow me, whatever it is that you can do to support, I would really appreciate it. So like I mentioned, it's the vibes, yo. It's all about, like, you know, the things that we all love, hopefully. So today I'm talking about something that's important to me, but I think also it's something that my community has been trying to get me to talk about for a while. I get a lot of questions around it, so I was like, you know what, let's talk about it. So the theme today is about, you know, travel tea. You know, when you're thinking about travel, it's like, where do you go? What do you do to go there? How do you get there? And how do you plan properly for that travel? So it's thinking about travel from different angles. And as you guys know, I've traveled in different forms. I've traveled for work. I've also traveled in my personal capacity for just, you know, vibes. So I'm going to be talking about how you can travel, you know, through work. You can also travel through school, but also how you can travel in your own capacity using your own personal funds, as well as like with your people, your friends and stuff like that. So that's what we're talking about today. And then just because I want to make sure like I cover everything that you guys might want to know about travel, I have a bit of a list of things. I wrote everything down so that I cover all the bases. But in case I don't cover everything, you can ask me questions in the comments, but you can also just share your own experiences so that, you know, if you've got experience that could be helpful for other people, we just follow what you're doing. Because guys, I think the whole point of this life is just explore the world, you know, see the world, see other people, build new friendships, communities, but also you don't know, travel can open opportunities for you, open doors for you that you wouldn't get sitting at home. So yeah, today is all about the travel, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Before I start, the rule is simple. Please follow me, please subscribe, support the girl and grow the community, because at the end of the day, the Mandata Show is about you all. So yeah, thank you guys for supporting me so far. Very, very excited. So like I said, I wrote everything down and I want to follow it so that, you know, we cover all the bases. The first thing obviously for me is about why is it important to travel? You know, I think I started traveling very early on in my life. I'm very excited about travel. Like if you know me, Jay, personally, you know, like the girl is about travel. And it's been a big part of my journey because it has created a lot of space for me. It has allowed me to meet amazing people. A lot of the friends that I have now are friends that I met through travel. And I always say that there is a chance that I know someone in a country somewhere, not maybe all of them, but at least I know someone that knows someone in a different space, so it expands the network in a way. So I want you to think about travel as that opportunity to see the world, see other cultures, taste like different foods, you know, see new places, that kind of vibe, but also it's about building community. So I wanted to start by reflecting on the importance of travel for me. So that was, well, kind of why I started traveling, and I continue traveling also because I think as someone that's passionate about fashion, one of the things I'm very passionate about is seeing how other people dress, you know, the cultural world from other countries, the non-cultural world, because also the world is globalizing. So there's a lot of the what people have been wearing that is, you know, unique to their own cultures, but what also people have been integrating from other cultures, but also how Africa is moving into these other spaces. So I'm always very excited about that. So I think when you start thinking about travel, you want to think about why is travel important for me? Why do I want to travel? I think it does help you think about how to travel, because once you know why you're traveling, you start asking yourself the question of how do I travel? Do I travel with my own funds? Do I travel through work? Do I travel through school? What is it that I do to travel? So I think the first place that you want to start at is why is it important for me to travel? Also, I mean, it can be a reason that feels very, you know, random or a little bit on the stupid if someone thinks about it. But it can also just because, you know, your friend is traveling, you're like, that may want to travel, you know. So it can be that you're inspired by someone else that you see traveling. And I always say to people that, you know, travel is not just about people that have money. I think it's something that people have believed for a long time. People don't travel because they don't believe that, you know, people without money can travel. I think I can confirm that I am not Elon Musk. I'm very far from Elon Musk, but you will still find me traveling. Mina, I'm not going to wait to have the millions and the billions to travel. I'm just going to be living my best life. So I want us to have this conversation and approach this from a place of you don't need to have too much money to travel. Money does facilitate and makes travel easier in some instances. It also allows you to have the best form of travel. But I mean, you can still experience the world and have a good time without having too much money in your bank account. So that's something that I wanted us to think about. And also, I think reflecting on why I've been traveling or how I've been traveling, one of the other important things that's going to show in the way that I talk about travel today is the fact that I used to travel when I lived in Zimbabwe, right? So there's a lot of complexity about travel from Zimbabwe, but there's also a lot of thinking about other ways of traveling while you live in Zimbabwe. And then I also traveled when I was living in the UK, as a student doing my masters and thinking about travel there. I'll talk about my own experiences, but also the way my other friends were traveling while they were living in the UK as students, and also after we graduated or after we finished school and we're still living in the UK. I'm also going to talk about travel in the Middle East, where I am right now, since moving into the UAE, and thinking about how did travel look like in that space. So it's thinking about travel from every different angle that I've been in, I guess, from the different places that I've lived in. You can also think about travel from your own perspective. Are you in the continent? Are you in Europe? Are you in America? Are you in a different place? And you can also just share with us, because I mean, I've not traveled much, let's say from the US or from Canada, from Australia. So if you have travel experience from those places, you can also just share that in order for us to expand the conversation, right? So those are like the, I guess, introductory remarks. We were thinking about why is it important to travel? How do I begin to think about where I'm coming from, why I'm traveling, how I'm traveling, right? So those are like the main things to start with. And then obviously, something that I forgot to mention is the fact that, it doesn't have to be these important reasons, things like building community, things like experiencing culture. Sometimes it's just really, getting to know the people that are important to you, right? So there are some reasons, for some people that could just be about, I want to build, stronger friendships with the existing friends that I have. So maybe you guys are living in different places, or you're doing totally different things, and then you meet once a year, 3 times a year as girlies, as a mixed gender situation, or whatever it is that you guys travel as, or what your friend groups look like. You want to travel and get to know each other better. So it could also just be like you're getting to know your family, you're spoiling your people. There's so many reasons why you can travel. So don't think about it as, building networks because it feels like you're working while you're traveling. You can travel for really like random reasons. I have traveled for random reasons, guys, and those random reasons have really given me so much joy and peace, but still created, other things. You never know, like you could travel for randomness, but meet people, and then this leads to professional opportunities or other things that you didn't know about. So I think it's thinking about it from that place. It's serious things, but also it doesn't always have to be, serious things. So you can travel with family, with friends, with your partner to just, create memories. And I always tell people that one of the things, and I'm going to talk about it later when I talk about documenting your travel, one of the things that is very important for me as I think about travel, as I do this traveling thing, is creating memories, but also capturing the memories. I love taking videos. I like taking photos. If I'm traveling, I will take photos. I will take videos. And I say this a lot because there are some people that travel and they don't take photos. Like they don't, create memories. If it works for you, that's okay. But for me, I'm like, I want to create, like a footprint. I can map where I've been, right? But also because there are places that I've gone to that I know I'm not going to go back to, or that I know it's going to be difficult to go back for different reasons, or I went there and it's an expensive place to go to, and I went there because it was a work thing or a school thing and things like that. So I like to think about, creating memories that will allow me to remember some of those places without, having to think about going back, but also to show my people, because I think, as we grow and travel as young people, especially young people from Zim, young people from the continent, and young people from, different parts of the world, could be Europe, could be wherever, where you are from. I think for me, I talk a lot about the experience of Africans because that's my experience, Zimbabweans because that's my experience, right? So when you think about that, there are certain people in your families that have never seen certain places. So you become the eye for them. You become the window or the lens through which they see and experience those places. So when you're intentional about how you capture that, you're allowing people to see the world outside of TV and magazines and all those things. So it's very important that you document your experiences. I will talk a little bit later about how you can think about documenting, how you can think about, making sure that you capture these experiences. Okay, so now that you've covered the basics and you already know why it's important to travel, some of the things that you want to think about when you're traveling or when you're thinking about where you're traveling from, I think we need to have like 3 basics for planning for travel, right? The first one obviously is answering the question, where do you go? And I always think that where you go is built on different things, right? It's about, am I traveling solo? Am I traveling with friends? Am I traveling with family? Like, who's financing the travel? And then you want to think about, oh, okay, if I'm traveling on my own and I'm covering everything, what is my budget, right? So I think for me, that's one of the first things I try to answer when I'm thinking about traveling. It's like, what's my budget looking like? What is the vibe that I'm trying to go with? And also, what are the kind of experiences that I want to do? Because I know, like, for instance, if you're thinking beach vibes, you want to think about places like, places that have beaches. You can't be thinking oceans when you go to a place that's landlocked. Like, what are you trying to do? You can also be thinking about, wildlife. So you're thinking of places where you can see the big five or see whatever it is that is there in the wild. And then if you're thinking about mountains and whatever, so already you see how this is framing where you go. So it's thinking about the kind of vibe that you're going with, but also thinking about, okay, what's my budget? I might be thinking, I want to see the big five, but I don't have the money for that kind of experience. So I think for me, when I start thinking about, okay, where do I go? I start from a place of, what's my money looking like? Am I paying if I'm not, if I'm going to work? I always say, like, when you're traveling to work, I know, like, it sounds like, oh, you're going to work, but thinking about how to travel for work and then use that opportunity to properly explore places. I will talk that in detail a bit later. But I think the basic is, where do you go? So the where do you go is answered by, am I traveling on my personal funds, the funds of family, the funds of friends, or whatever it is? And then think about, what's the budget, what's the maximum? Do I want to travel minimum? Do I want to travel, I want to spend? Because there are some people that travel on a budget, but then when it's like your birthday or it's something big, you want to go big, or you're spoiling your parents with a trip, or whatever it is that you're doing. Some people go big sometimes, and then sometimes travel on a budget. So you choose what is it that you want to go with, and then just work with that. If it's the vibes, like, okay, I see the vibes, Mara, does my money agree with my vibes? If it doesn't, just do what works for you. I always say, like, don't go beyond your means, because you will struggle wherever you're going. So just think about things that you'll be comfortable with. And then if it's groups as well, it's thinking about, okay, I see that I like this kind of things, but what does the next person like? Because it doesn't make sense to, like, go with what Mandate likes. I might be liking things that are a bit more expensive, or things that might not necessarily be worth it for other people. So if you're traveling with a group, you want to think about, okay, where is it that we can go, where we can all enjoy, where we can all have experiences that align with our needs and our budget. And also, you can travel with the same people and do different activities depending on what you guys have. But I also think with friend groups, like, you want to do things that you'll like, because you don't want to be doing nicer things than your friend because they don't have the same resources. Just go to a place that makes sense. So I think the where to go is built on different things, and these are some of the things that I would say think about. I think about those kind of things, right? And then the other thing I want to think about when I'm planning for the travel is, when do you go? There are some places where you're like, okay, if I go during peak season, it's just going to be expensive. There are some places where, like, if it's December, everybody's going there. If it's Easter holidays, everybody's going there. Those kind of vibes. So you want to think about, when is it a good time to go? If you want to go during peak season, like December holidays, Easter holidays, things like that, you want to think about, when do I book, so that I book before everybody starts scrambling to go there. So you want to book in time in order, to afford. But also there's that conversation as well. Booking in time is good for some things, but also there are promos that come with, like, around peak season. Like, if it's Christmas or Easter, people are doing, like, Easter, vacation discounts or whatever it is. So you want to think about, what is it that works for me, and just go with that, instead of just waking up one day and say, okay, I want to travel on Christmas. It's just not going to work unless you've got the money to splash. I would say, like, think about, when do I travel? When does it cost less, and when does it have a few people if you don't like crowds? For instance, it's not just about money, it's also about, like, when do you have too much people going there? I remember, like, when I recently went to Albania, one of the things that I kept seeing online was, around August, around this time, a lot of people are coming for the summer and whatever. I was just like, oh, okay, thank God I'm going at a time where there isn't too many people, but the weather is also perfect. So it's things like that that you want to think about. You want to think about, okay, is there too much crowd? Am I not a crowd person? Then I'm not going to go around that time. Or, like, summer is also interesting for, especially if you're living in the UK, right? For instance, the UK is cold a lot of the time, right? So when I think about traveling to other places, I'm not going to volunteer myself to go to a place where it's cold and raining. That's already a lot of things in the UK, right? So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to think about, okay, where do I go where there's a little bit of sunshine, or the weather is better, or where, something else. I'm just not going to go to a place where the weather is the same as where I'm coming from, right? Unless, I mean, it's like certain places where you're like, okay, I need to go to a place where it's snowing, what. I would understand that because that's what you're looking to experience. But to volunteer yourself to just go to a place when the weather is not great, that's just not possible. If you want to go to places when it's not summer, because summer is a nice place to go, like it's a nice time to go to certain places, right? But also you want to think about, okay, if I don't want to travel in summer, because everybody's traveling in summer, maybe I want to go during the winter. The question that you then try to answer is, okay, if I'm going during the winter, which kind of places can I go to? What kind of activities can I go, like can I go and experience? And then you start framing your travel around that. So I've covered the where do you go, and number 2, when do you go? And then beyond the seasons, you also want to think about issues of events, right? Some people travel, for instance, to Portugal, they will go to Afro Nation, right? So they will travel around that time. Someone else might be traveling to the UK for whatever it is. Someone else might travel to Dubai around this time. Someone else might go to Zimbabwe, South Africa, wherever around a particular time. So you want to think about events. If it's events, especially annual events where you know the dates are released in time, you want to book your things well ahead of time. Like book your ticket in time, book your travel right on time. It means that you will save a lot on travel because, yo guys, if you book too close to your date of travel, things are expensive, especially flights. I have learned the hard way that you don't book flights the week you're traveling or the day before and things like that. So you want to think about that. And then the other thing beyond like where to go, when to go is also like how do you get there, right? For some people it's flight, for some people it's thinking about buses, train, or am I road tripping with my friends or with my family or my own, whatever it is, right? So this part is very important. If it's a flight, you start thinking about, okay, how do I search for the cheapest flight or a sensible flight? Because cheap is not always, sensible. It's not always affordable. Sometimes cheap can be expensive. For instance, a flight can be cheap, but it's not allowing you to have any luggage, and it means that you're going to pay for luggage. When you start adding up the luggage and the whatevers, you start realizing, you know what, I should just have booked a flight that allows me to go with luggage. So you want to think about different things. So it's thinking about, okay, what's the luggage allowance for my flight? It's thinking about how many hours am I going to be traveling for. It's also thinking about how many stops are there with this flight, right? So you want to think about all those things because I don't think it's nice to travel for 18 to 24 hours and then having 2-3 stops and then you're just going on holiday for 3 days. By the time you get there, you're so exhausted. By the time you come back, you're so exhausted and then you have to go back to work. You're also losing days by, spending too much time traveling. So you want to think about those kind of things with flights. And then with buses, also buses work well if it's like within the country type of travel or between countries that are very close to each other. I wouldn't recommend buses, for instance, for someone that stays in Southern Africa wanting to go to, for instance, Tanzania. I know you can get there by bus, but just thinking about how long it's going to take you and just the stress, I genuinely feel like unless it's like the only option that you have to travel, don't think about it. Think about travel for places that are better to get to. It's just important thinking about, how you can use buses to reduce the cost for you. But it could also just mean like if I'm traveling between cities, because it's not always traveling out of the country, right? Sometimes it's just traveling within the country. So you're thinking about instead of flying from Harare to Victoria Falls, how do I travel by road? And also, like, I know I've said flight, I've said buses. For some other countries, there's train. For instance, if you're traveling in Europe, the train system is really good. Also, some places the boat is good. Like, for instance, if you're in Albania, you can actually take a boat from Albania to Greece, right? You can take a boat to another place. So just thinking about, okay, what is it that works in different places and just going with that kind of vibe, I think it's very important and useful for you, because when you're thinking about, okay, time as well, what is it that will take me less time if I don't have a large amount of time for that kind of vacation? But also thinking about, okay, I see the time, like what's the money looking like, right? I keep saying the money looking like because I'm assuming you also want to travel, understanding that you don't have a lot of resources. If you do have a lot of resources to spend on travel, please invite me to go with you so that we can enjoy life on your money. And then the last thing, obviously, beyond just thinking about the flight, the bus and the train, for some people, they like to road trip. So you can road trip with your family. If someone has a car, use that car if you're traveling with them. If you're traveling with your friends and one of you has a car, but it always doesn't need to be, like yours car. Think about it this way: if you fly into a country and you want to cover multiple cities, it might be cheaper for you guys to just hire a car from the airport or from wherever and then just use the car to travel between cities. It's actually cheaper, especially if you're a group, than actually trying to take, for instance, taxis or other things between those cities. So those are the kind of things that you think about when you think about how do you get there, right? So I've said where to go, I've said when do you go, but also how do you get there. But I want to move away from that and think about visas as well, because that's a big part of how we think about travel, right? For instance, there are some places where your passport makes it difficult for you to get to certain countries, right? Visas are so important to think about, because in as much as you want to go to these countries, you want to experience all those things that you're trying to experience with your friends, with your family, on your own, with your partner, whatever it is. But it's also thinking about, do our passports allow us to go the visa free, or do we need to get a visa? And if you need to get a visa, you want to think about, is it difficult to get a visa from that place? If it is difficult, okay, can I go, or do I go to another place that's similar in terms of what I'm trying to get from that particular place? And also for some places, you're thinking about, how early can I apply for that particular visa? For instance, one of the visas that is very complicated, especially when you are in the UK, is the Schengen visa. The Schengen visa can be a nightmare for a lot of people, right? So thinking about, okay, when is a good time to apply for the Schengen visa? If I'm applying to go in 2 weeks versus, for instance, applying to go in 6 months or a year. So it's about thinking about, how is it that this application for the visa can shape kind of like the timeline for my travel, or how can my timeline shape the kind of options for countries that I choose to go to? So it's very important to think about, which visa-free countries can I go to that give me the same experience, or if I'm still like very adamant or committed to go to certain countries, how do I go about planning for the visa? And also, I think this is information that you find online. Most people are like, how do I go there? Do I need a visa to go to this place? But I think, guys, the basics is, you don't need to be asking somebody, even if it's someone that's going to that country. You might be from different countries, you might have, different experiences. For instance, I have a much more expansive, for instance, travel history. So for instance, it might be, I feel like I'm saying for instance a lot, but the point is, because of my travel history, there are some visas that I might get because I've been traveling for a while and I have a good travel record, that you may not get if you have a new passport. Or it could be that I'm from a country where it's easier to get a particular visa, or there are higher chances of me getting a particular visa. So you want to think about those things and actually factor them in as you think about visas as well. So do your research online. Google is your best friend. You can go on Google, you can search. There are people that do blogs that actually share with you guys how you think about visas, how they went about it. So you want to search that as well. But I always tell people that TikTok is another place where you can find useful information. YouTube is another place where you can find useful information. You find videos of people sharing how they did their own things. Some people share hacks actually about how you can apply for a visa, what you need to know, some of the things that you need to do in order to be smart around the whole visa application. Beyond just thinking about dates and availability, of appointments for that visa, you also want to think about the cost of the visa, because that can also add up, the cost of your travel. For some countries actually charge you after they've confirmed that you're getting the visa, which is very, very helpful, right? Instead of you paying and spending so much money on visas that you're not going to get. For instance, the US Embassy, you will pay. If you don't get the visa, we are sorry. And I think it's the same with the UK Embassy, because you actually pay and then submit your things and then you just wait for a response. But there are some countries that actually allow you to know whether you're getting the visa or not before you pay. Like when I got the Chinese visa, I actually went there, then they told me, okay, come back on a Friday for your visa. And then I came on Friday, and that's when I paid, when my visa was being stamped into my passport. So you want to think about those things, because you don't want to spend a lot of money on visas that you're not going to get, right? It's going to just increase the cost of your travel. So we've talked about thinking about visa-free countries or visa-requiring countries. I've talked about how you need to think about how you research for the timeline that is available for your visa, thinking about how difficult it is to get that visa, thinking about availability of our appointments and things like that, and also the cost of that particular visa. But also one thing that we know, like I feel like we don't think about this a lot, which is very, very important, is transit visas. There are so many countries that actually require you to have a transit visa. So for instance, you might be going to a country that doesn't require you to have a visa, and then you get too excited and you're thinking, oh, my passport allows me to go to this country without a visa. You might need a transit visa. A transit visa is a visa that allows you to go through a particular airport in a particular country on your way to that country that you're going to. So how you navigate this is one, making sure that you research. You can read the terms and conditions of a ticket before you book it, because the tickets normally specify. If they don't specify, you can call them and ask, you can email and ask, or you can just read on the website of that particular country just to see what's up, right? And then don't always rely on people. You can ask people online on social media and see what they're saying, but don't always rely on people. just make sure you get official information so that you don't get stopped in airports, because they can stop you at the airport where you're starting, or you can be stopped in the country that you are supposed to be transiting through. So think about those things, otherwise you lose a lot of money. So it's very, very important to think about transit visas. And then the other thing about transit visas is it might be required if you're going to check out and check in as if you're going into a totally, like it's like you're coming into a new flight, right? But for some countries where they check your bags in one place and then you're finding them at the destination country, they may not require it. So you want to think about what the dynamics are and make sure. I remember like when I went to Guatemala, I actually went through the US. I used my US visa to go there. So I went through New York. When I got to New York, I actually checked out and then checked in as if I was checking into a new flight. So I required my US visa because I was stepping into US territory and then stepping out to go into Guatemala, right? And then when I was coming back, I remember my US visa expired the day before I traveled back. And because of that, I couldn't travel back through the US because I no longer had a valid visa. So then I used my UK visa, which was valid at the time, to travel back through other countries, including like France, right? So you want to think about, if you have a mix of visas, that might actually work. If you don't, make sure you're safe. Otherwise, you will get into trouble. You don't want to get into trouble. I feel like just having the right travel history, having no history of overstaying in places, having no, like history of playing games with the visa system, you just want to make sure you have a good track record, because it helps as you apply for the future visas that you apply for, because some countries actually ask you, have you been denied a visa? And then also, like, I feel like I've had so many experiences with like visas, and I've had good experiences. I've never been denied a visa, which I think is a privilege, because I know people that have a great travel history that have still been denied a visa. So I think for me, I like to appreciate the fact that I've not been denied a visa. And that's why I was telling you guys earlier that you want to make sure that you leave, and stay within the expectations of that particular visa in order to respect the visa, but also to ensure that when you apply in the future, you increase your chances. And I'm saying increase your chances because it's not always guaranteed, right? So that's what you want to think about. And I know there are some other things about visas that I might not have touched on. So if you feel like there is something you want to share, please feel free to share in the comment section your own experiences, but also just read online. There are so many people that share their experiences about how they were denied a visa. So you want to think about seeing how those experiences look, especially if you want to know about like the specific experiences for your country, for your region and things like that. It's very, very important. And I've covered visas extensively because I feel like this is something that's important, but we don't think about it a lot when we think about visas. The other thing that's very important, obviously, is about thinking about budget. I know I've mentioned before, like, am I traveling with my own money or for work and whatever? Whether you're traveling for work and adding some days or adding some activities outside of those mandated by the travel for work, you want to think about breaking down like all of that into a budget, right? So the other thing I wanted to touch on is just like thinking about the budget and expenses. If it's personal trips, one thing that's very important obviously is thinking about the accommodation. Where am I going to stay? How do I find affordable places? And also, what's the kind of vibe that I like to go with? Am I thinking hostels? Am I thinking hotels? Am I thinking Airbnbs? What is it that I want to do, right? For me, I'm not much of a hotel girly. I generally feel like when I think about travel, the first place I go to is not always a hotel, unless there's a specific reason why I'm going to that particular hotel. Like if it's a hotel that is definitely dope, I would consider it. But generally, I'm not a hotel girly. I'm more of an Airbnb girly. I want to look for something that gives me a little bit more space beyond just having a bed and stuff. Like I know that some hotels give you a little bit more, like it's your bed, it's your couch, it's your what, but those become a little bit expensive, right? So I think with Airbnbs, I can control the view that I have. I can control the amount of space that I have and still pay the same amount I'll pay with a hotel, or even better. So for me, I'm like the queen of Airbnbs. And if you know me, you know, like when I'm traveling and I'm choosing an Airbnb, the aesthetic is gonna be pleasing. So I'm about the aesthetic, I'm about the view that I get and things like that. So it's very important to decide which one is your vibe. And also beyond just Airbnbs, you want to think about budget hotels. There are some hotels that are very affordable. So you want to think about hotel packages, hotel discounts and things like that. Just go with what works for you. And outside of Airbnbs and hotels, there is also the option of hostels. A lot of people don't know about hostels. I've stayed in hostels in London. I've done a hostel in Zim as well. Zim does have hostels, but I only did a hostel in Harare when I was no longer staying there, and I went there to do like a visa thing. So I went to the hostel. It was very, very affordable. So hostels are cheaper, but you want to think about a hostel that is reputable. So you're always reading reviews and seeing what other people are saying. So for instance, in London, I remember there was a time when I wanted to experience London extensively without coming in and out and all of that. So I actually did go to a hostel, which meant that I stayed in like it was a room with multiple beds, so different people book different beds, so you get to choose whether you want a female only dorm or a male only dorm or a mixed dorm, whatever it is. There are also rooms in this hostel that you can choose, but I feel like the cost of the room sometimes almost goes towards just booking a room like in a hotel or something like that. It's not as expensive as a hotel, but I just feel like sometimes if you're paying for the room, might as well go to another place, right? But I would recommend you thinking about hostels, especially when you're going to places where there are reputable hotels, reputable hostels that are, you know, great aesthetically as well, because hostels are great for meeting new people. You meet young people your age, you meet people that love travel like you meet people from different countries, you share experiences, and you can also cook in this hostel. So they've got kitchens, they've got communal spaces with Wi-Fi where you can work. There's also like lockers for your to just secure your things, and you can always have a lock for your suitcase. There's, you know, a lot of things. So I would say that hostels are another place or another way of thinking about accommodation. And the last one is couch surfing. I will not talk much about couch surfing because I've never used it, but it's another way of building that, you know, like cheaper travel method, because with couch surfing you don't necessarily have to pay, or it can be cheap. Someone can basically allow you to sleep on their couch or an extra room in their house, because also you avail your space for other travelers as well. So you join the couch surfers community, and then, you know, you host other people, they host you as well, or things like that. I've not used it. I know it because I've had the app, but I've never actually used it. So read reviews for everything that you book so that you're safe and you don't say my data is saved. I should do couch surfing and then I wasn't safe in it, right? So think about it, that as well. So you're thinking about accommodation, budget, accommodation, what works for you. You're thinking about the vibes, aesthetics, the cost, and what you're trying to look for overall. And then also thinking about resources, you're also thinking about the cost of flight and transport. I think I spoke extensively about how to get there. So if you're thinking about saving, you're thinking about how do I mix the flight and the buses, flights, boats, or buses and boats, or how do I road trip with a couple of friends so that, you know, we save on one thing. Just thinking about the best way to try. Do what works for you guys, do what works for your convenience, for your cost, and whatever other things that you're looking at when thinking of travel. But there's also obviously thinking about cost for activities. When you travel, you want to think about, am I going to do free things only, or am I going to mix free things and, you know, things that are paid for? I would say that when you think about free things, there's so many things that you can do in a country that are totally free, right? That there's some places where it's not so free. So you want to think about, am I willing to pay for this kind of activities? So you can save from some specific activities where you're like, if I'm going to Bali, this is a definite must do. If I'm going to Zimbabwe, this is a definite must do. But then there's some things where you're like, you know, I'm just going to stick to things that are free. So you want to think about that as well. But also when you're booking some hotels or some places, there could be a package to say, if you book this thing, there's a free activity on this end. So you want to think about packages like that. And then in thinking about activities as well, it depends on how you want to go about it. Some of it is looking at blogs and what other people did when they were traveling. Or you can also just do like certain apps. There's an app, for instance, that's called Get Your Guide. I think it's Get Your Guide, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, but you can just Google. There are apps that allow you to just go in there and see what activities are available in that particular area, in that particular country, and also the cost for each of the activities. So you can choose activities that are based from like the idea of the time, like what time of day do you want to be doing it? Is it a group? Is it solo? You know, what kind of vibe? Is it starting from this point to this point, or how many hours you want it to be? Those kind of vibes. So you actually get to filter. I feel like that's like smarter because you don't spend too much time doing the work yourself. Someone has already done it. You just go there, put some filters, and something comes up, and you can see a book on there. And I think it's safer because if there is an issue and you cancel, the refund is better because you're not chasing individuals, you're chasing the company, right? And then the other thing you're thinking about beyond just activities, there are other hidden costs. Visas are part of them, but we've spoken about them. There are also issues of insurance. If you're traveling in Europe, you definitely need insurance. And insurance really just differs. Google what's affordable. Google what most people are using, what most people are, you know, talking about is the best insurance for that country or that particular region. And then just choose what works for you. So I think for me, I've used different things. Like for instance, when I'm in the UK, I basically paid for post office insurance that covers Europe. And why I did that at some point is because I wanted to do multiple countries in Europe, and I was thinking about, I don't want to be paying for insurance every time I book an appointment for a visa, or I pay for a visa and things like that. So you can choose to do a package for 1 year that covers you for all your travel, but if you're not going to travel a lot, you can just do the once off. It's not too expensive, but you just want to think about, because every dollar counts, right? So insurance is one of the hidden fees, but also luggage fees. If you're like Mandate and you can't travel with a small suitcase, you want to think about that cost, because some flights that are cheap for you may not come with luggage allowances. So you want to think about, how do I factor this in, or how do I travel with a fewer things? Don't be like Mandate, just travel with a few things. But guys, I'm still learning to travel light. Okay, I'm traveling light, but my light is a little bit much for others. But another hack that I recently discovered is, if you're like the kind of person that doesn't travel so light, but you're traveling with people that are light travelers, you can ask if you can put your stuff in their things, especially if they're not filling their bags. I mean, if they're your friends or their partner, your family, they would understand, isn't? I mean. But I'll just say, yeah, think about that. And so it moves me to the next point about smart packing and luggage, right? Just thinking about, okay, if I'm booking a flight that says I can carry a satchel and I can carry a suitcase, or just a satchel, it's about thinking about the fact that, okay, I'm a light traveler, so I can make it work. But making it work is also very, thoughtful and strategic, because you're thinking about what about liquids, right? If I'm picking like my perfumes, my makeup, and my whatever, there are limits to how much liquids can go through, airport security if you're getting like a backpack or whatever luggage you're carrying into the flight. So you want to think about those kind of things. So as you think about traveling light, think about the liquids especially. But also, it's just beyond the liquids, it's thinking about, okay, even if there are restrictions to liquids, you can just get little bottles and whatever, small containers that you can put your things in, and then you just use that. But also, it's just thinking about just finding the things that work for you, or buying certain things when you arrive, like Colgate, or small things. But also just try not to buy things when you arrive, because what if you get there in the evening, and then in the morning or that evening you don't have a toothbrush, you don't have a what, think about those kind of things. And then also, it's thinking about essentials instead of extras. Like I say, don't be like Mandate. If you're Mandate, you've got extras. I will have my outfits in excess, guys. I will have a dress for the morning, the brunch, the lunch, and the dinner. Or I'll think about, okay, fine, it's just 3 things, but just in case I need 2 extras, and then I'll just put 2 extras. And I'll be thinking about shoes. I'm not going to be wearing 1 shoe throughout. That's just me. Don't be like me. So it's thinking about what works for you. Carry essentials, instead of like extras, especially if like you're tight on a budget. So I think it's just thinking about it that way. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice? And then I think the other thing that you think about as you travel and you pack your things is just thinking about, like technology related things. Your charger is very important. The charger that you find in the US is not the same as the one that you find in the UK, or the one that you find in a different place, right? So you want to think about having an adapter that works for you, or you want to find, I don't know, a multi-purpose or multi-style, I don't know what it's called, charger that allows you to use it in the UK, in the US, and other places as well. That's very, very important, because you get there, you don't have a charger for your laptop, you don't have a charger for your phone, and then you're getting there and you need a password to enter an Airbnb, or you need, I don't know, whatever it is that you need to do, or there's a taxi that you booked, you need to call and get a message, whatever it is, you might just need it. Or if you're traveling at the airport and they're asking you, for instance, can we see your share code if you're a UK resident and you don't have that because you don't have a physical ID anymore, and then you don't have a charged phone, and all of those things. Think about that. It's about chargers, it's about power banks if you need it, it's adapters and things like that. These are things that you must have, these are things that you must think about, but also thinking about light stuff, because if you're traveling light, you need to carry smaller stuff. And also, obviously, like I say, don't be like me. Think about comfort over style. So for me, it's like, don't use me as a model. I'm not the best model for travel, because I feel like I really think about, okay, what am I gonna wear? What am I gonna do? I wanna carry my light, for instance. I wanna carry my watts. Like, just don't be like Mandate. Just think about what works for you. In the past, when I feel like I didn't have as much resources, I would think extensively about these things and try to travel light. It was still not too light, but it was sensible light. But now I'm like, I will prioritize other things over, just denying myself pleasures just because I'm trying to save too much. And then the last area that I want to talk about, and I know I've covered a lot of things, is obviously making memories. I mentioned earlier that it's important to capture and document your experience, right? So thinking about that comes from a place of, how do I document with my phone or with the camera, depending on what I have. I always say, like, if you've got a camera, move around with it. If you've got a good phone, move around with it. Even if you don't have a good phone, it's also about finding ways to shoot my content better with the phone that I have, because it's not about buying a new phone for travel. So it's things that you want to think about. It's videos that you take for Instagram, it's videos that you take for YouTube, for other things. So it's about also just basic stuff, orientation. Am I using my phone like this? Am I using my phone like this? What's the lighting like? What's the resolution like? Those kind of things. And all of this, to be honest, is available online. You can go on TikTok and ask somebody, what are the settings I should have for this particular phone to take good content for videos or for photos. You can check settings that work best for your camera. I feel like information is available online, and you guys should take advantage of that and use it. So I would recommend just use what you have. Don't stress yourself too much. If you've got someone in the group that's got a dog phone, use that person's phone, and make sure that you're not the people that are always asking that person to take you photos. You should also be the people that's taking that person photos, because I think it's unfair to go with the group and you're always the camera person. Like, I'm not here to take your pictures, I'm also here to enjoy life. So you want to balance that and offer to take pictures of that particular person, and then also being patient enough to wait for that person to actually give you the photos. Because you take photos now and someone's like, please send me, I'm saving my battery too, or I'm still enjoying my life, can we do this a bit later? So be understanding. And this is not to say people with nice phones should make you suffer, but I'm just like, guys, let's just be considerate of the fact that someone is giving us our resource, his resources, so you want to be respectful of that. And yeah, I know I've spoken extensively, but I would say also another way of documenting beyond photos and videos is thinking about, journaling and souvenirs. People get souvenirs a lot because they remind them of places that they've gone to. Some people get key cards, some people get those items that you put in the fridge, I forgot their name. Some people get t-shirts and other things. I don't collect a lot of those things, so souvenirs can look different from everybody. Most of my souvenirs would be like outfits, because I like those kind of things. It could be jewelry. That's my kind of vibe. It could be like a diary. It could be, I don't know, whatever it is, but it's more like things that I like versus, like the regular stuff. Regular stuff are nice as well, but I don't want my fridge full of different things that are different colored and all those, like different colors and all those things. I want my things to like work together. So I'm not going to be the person collecting that kind of stuff. And also I'm not carrying keys around. These days in some places, like I don't use keys anymore. For my house, I don't use keys, I use a card. So technically I'm not going to be carrying around that key card. So I think about, okay, I'm not going to buy that as a souvenir for myself, but if I'm buying for someone that uses like a key, for instance, I would buy for that particular person. And also thinking about, I don't know, I just feel like you need to just buy things you will use. I'm one person that's all about sustainability, thinking about not just buying things that you're just gonna pile up at home and that are not useful for you. You can buy for other people and distribute. If it's mugs and you like collecting mugs and shirts and whatever, distribute to other people. If you get a lot of free gifts from those places, distribute to other people. So I think you can make your travel, an opportunity for other people to get gifts, because every time I travel, I'm thinking about what is it that I can get for my friends, what is it that I can get for my family, versus just getting random things. I'm not big on random things. I would like freebies. I will take, because I want to give back to I want to give to my people back home, because if something is for free, why am I living it? But I'm not just collecting things just for vibes, right? So you think about the kind of souvenirs that you get, and also journaling, right? As you go, important things, exciting things, and then when you're back, you can just have them as highlights when you're sharing your pictures online. Or if you're writing articles for people that like blogging, that's another way of just documenting your journey. And I think it's important to document your journey. You don't have to do it on the go, like you don't have to post on the go, but you can also think about, okay, I'm gonna post a bit later, but I could use this as a reference. So those notes are helpful. When you write your blogs, you're helping other people to, travel better, travel easily, because they've seen from your experience that they can also travel the same way or improve their own travel. So I would say journaling is good, but it's not really like a force meta type of thing, right? And then also the other thing is about balancing between group fun and personal peace. Like, I rarely travel with groups. If it's a group, it's always a small group. I don't like the stress of planning trips for a big group, because I'm a planner. My friends always say I project manage a lot of things in my life. So I'm the girl that wants to know, okay, what is it going to cost me on a minimum, on a high end? I want to think about, okay, when do I arrive? When do I leave? What are the things I'm going to do? I also like to have flexibility. As much as I'm planning my things, I also want the freedom to just change my mind in the morning and say, okay, I don't want to go to the beach anymore. I want to go for brunch instead, or I want to go to see this different place instead of going to that place that I plan to go to. So I plan my things, but also I want to have room for a little bit of flexibility. And that means that if it's a group, it's difficult, because I can't just be changing my mind when I'm traveling with a group. So there's some instances where if I want too much freedom, I'm like, I'm not planning to travel with people. And also I know I've proposed travel to a couple of people before, and that travel planning didn't get off the group chat. I'm just like, I'm not doing that. But I like traveling with my friends. Like a lot of, like since I moved to the UAE, I feel like I'm doing a lot more with my girls and with my people than I did before, because there's a lot more excitement about travel. It's people that have been traveling or people that are curious about travel, and they're willing to do the work of planning together. So I'm the person that plans things and then allows other people to input and stuff, but I'm the person that's like checking if the project is coming together, because that's my thing. I'm like a project manager at heart. So I want to say that, you know, as you think about all of this, do you want to do the group thing and the stresses that come with it, or do you want to do your own thing so that you don't have too much stress? And people change their mind last minute. For instance, if you book accommodation for 5-6 people and then 3 people drop out, it means you're still having to pay for all of that. So you want to think about that as you think about, you know, group travel, also the travel. And then I'm trying to think what I didn't talk about. Oh yeah, so I feel like I generalized for kind of like more personal travel. The dynamics are similar for work travel, but I want to add a couple of things that are very specific to work-related travel. Work-related travel means that you're thinking about conferences, whether it's academic or professional conferences, whatever it is. If you're traveling for a 3-day conference, you're thinking about what is it that I can do in those 3 days that allows me to see beyond what the program is for that. Some programs are too tight. You start at 6 a.m., you finish at 6 p.m. or 8 to 6 p.m., whatever it is. So it's difficult. Some programs plan activities for you to explore the place, which is great. Some places you could arrive a day before, right? Or arrive in the morning and your program is in the evening or in the afternoon. You can think about, how do I build like other vibes, things, experiences that are not in the program into my morning or into my day if it's tomorrow. But I know that as you think about this, you also want to be practical, because you can't travel 16 hours, 11 hours, 20 hours, and then you get there, you're trying to experience everything. We always say that you rest when you go back home, but we need to also be practical to our bodies. So you want to think about, if you're traveling for work, if there's a day before or a day after the conference or whatever it is that you're traveling for, if there's free time, use that in a wise way. And then there are some options where when you travel, there's an opportunity for you to extend your days or come a little bit earlier. So if that opportunity is there, talk to them. I always say, don't do things your own way. Don't just randomly, you know, change the flight travel dates without informing the people that are inviting you, because it does in some way disrespect them, because they are responsible for you while you're in that particular place that they've invited you to. So you want to honor them by making sure that you communicate your travel plans with them and confirm if it's okay for you to extend your days or come a little bit earlier. So open and transparent conversations with them is very, very much important. Otherwise, you're just getting yourself into trouble, and it's not a good look for them, because in the future they might not be excited about having you. So that's something to think about. I know a couple of people, myself included, that have extended our time and we enjoyed our life. I've gone to the US for a thing that was like a week, and then I extended by another week, and then I enjoyed my time while I was there. And I know a couple of friends that have done the same, that allowed them to go to other cities that the program was not necessarily in. And then you can also apply for programs that are like multiple city. One of my favorite trips in the world was the trip to China. I really enjoyed that trip because I was there for a week, but in that week I went to 3 different cities. It was phenomenal. So you can get some travel opportunities that are like multi-week. And how you find those opportunities, some come to you in your different workspaces, your different academic spaces. Some are things that you need to apply for, also having the right skills. I'll talk about this on a different episode where I'm telling you guys how to search for those opportunities, where to search and things like that. But I would say Google is your best friend. Go online and look for things that match with your interest, your qualification. If it's professional or academic, you're looking for conferences that are within, or fellowships or whatever it is that are within your area, or things that align with your growth, because things that are for Mandata may not be things for you. So you want to be realistic about what you apply for. But generally, I just think that when you think about travel for work, don't always think about it as just work, work, work. Be smart about it. There are some countries that you will not go back to because it's expensive to go there, or it's difficult to just get a visa without a sponsor. So think about work travel as an opportunity to explore and experience those countries. And in as much as you're thinking differently because it's work, they're covering your flight or something else, you can also think the same way that I've been highlighting how you think about travel. Because if you're extending your time, it's about, where do I live when I finish staying at the place where the program has actually allowed me to stay. You're thinking about the cost for that, you're thinking about all those other dynamics of transportation and other things. And also The other thing is that for some instances, I remember this other organization, I told them that I wanted to stay longer because I had plans, and my plans were really like networking. It was a lot of meeting other organizations, getting to see what they're doing, have conversations with them about what I'm doing, what I'm passionate about. So I did tell them about that, and they mentioned that they're only going to pay one way for my flight, and then I have to cover for the return. So you want to think about those kind of considerations, because when you talk to them and they say yes, extend, but we're not paying for that leg of the flight back home. So you want to think about that cost. Is it a cost that I'm willing to shoulder? So I do think that I've been talking a lot today, which is like my kind of thing. I don't mind talking for a long time, but I do think that's a lot of information. So like I said earlier, please go to the comments and let me know what your experiences are. It could be experiences that are similar to mine or different from me, that expands the conversation, which is the point of community, right? Or you can also just send me messages if you want me to share with the community, and then I can always blast it back to people. If you want it anonymous, I can do that. But yeah, I hope this was useful for you. I hope this helps you begin to think about travel or traveling better if you've been traveling already. But yeah, I think it's great to travel. I really recommend travel. I also recommend travel that is within your reach, whether it's financial, whether it's because of your goals, or whether it's around questions of time and what you have available in terms of energy. You can also think about travel for groups, family, and solo, whatever works for you, but do what is within your reach so that you don't stretch yourself. Because I think if you don't travel well, if you don't plan your travel better, you will definitely suffer. Like, you will hate travel because you're traveling in a way that really doesn't work. So I would say think about it extensively and just be a smart girly when it comes to traveling, and also set good goals. I know I didn't talk about things like budgeting for your travel in terms of like saving for that particular travel. I feel like that's a conversation for a different day. I might have it, might never have it. You can ask me in my DMs, but actually DMs no, because a lot of people will just come on the comment and throw in a question. When I get time, I can always jump in and respond to that question. So I would say that these are things that are very important. Thinking about, if I'm traveling solo, how do I save for that travel? If I'm traveling with friends, how do we coordinate our saving, and how do we commit to the saving, right? Because some people just commit at the beginning because they're excited about going to Zanzibar, Maldives, or going to Victoria Falls, whatever it is. But then when it comes to actually staying consistent, they are not. So sorry about that. I think it's interesting because last time I did this, I was speaking non-stop and forgot to drink my water. Today I remembered, so my water is not aesthetic today. But yeah, I was just saying, you need to think about commitment to saving so that you're traveling and have a good time. And then if you're like me, I plan for certain travels where I stay for a while, and then some travel I'm just like, okay, I'm bored, or I've got this break, I've got this free time, or I'm just too excited, or my friend is getting married and I want to go there. So it's just different all the time. You can plan for other types of travel that are super stressful. Some can be spontaneous if it's not too expensive. And I think one thing I didn't talk about that is very important, that I actually once did, was when I was in South Africa. I spent some time in South Africa when I was off work for a year. And I remember I was in South Africa because it was easier to fly from South Africa to a lot of other countries, and cheaper than when I was in Spain. And I remember there were instances where if I was bored on a Thursday, I'd be like, okay, I could go to Eswatini on a Friday, because one, I could get on public transport and be in Eswatini in 4 hours. So it didn't really stretch me too much in terms of planning. And it was cheaper to stay like in a hostel in Eswatini. That's what I did. If you go to Botswana, it doesn't take too long as well. So you're thinking about countries that are closer, So for me, that's what I was thinking about, to say it doesn't always have to feel like flying across countries and stuff like that. It can just be like, okay, I'm in this particular country. Where else can I go? Even if you travel, say you're on a fellowship and you're in South Africa for 2 weeks or a month, think about which other places can I go that are easy visa to get or visa free, that I can go to without breaking bank. So those are other things that I didn't talk about that are important, but you can always search online, guys. I'm not the only person with information. My information is very limited to my own experience and what I've seen around me, but I would say just go online and search for information. You will find everything there. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. I hope this was helpful to you guys. I think, yeah, I enjoyed talking to you guys about travel. I hope it answers all of the questions that you guys have asked me, because there are people that have come to my inbox or to my comments and asked me how I travel, what they need to think about as they travel. So I hope this answers your questions. Like I always say, please subscribe to my channel, because we are building community and we're trying to have those conversations so that we experience life better, because we're learning from each other. please comment, please reply, please, you know, follow me so that you don't miss future episodes. And I think I'll be curious as well to know what you guys want me to talk about. And I know that in my future episodes you might be seeing a guest or two, you know, just be ready. But yeah, I also enjoy the solo conversations, solo reflections as well, because I think they're very, very helpful. But yeah, be on the lookout for the episodes of the episodes of the show that actually have guests, because I'm also very excited about that. So yeah guys, thank you so much for joining another episode of the Mandate Show with the girl Mandate Mlojwa. Thank you guys, take care and goodbye.